Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. As the mainland enters the golden autumn season with the long National Day and Mid-Autumn Festival holidays, it's traditionally when major international conferences take place, including APEC Leaders Meeting and ASEAN Summit. The main focus in diplomatic circles, of course, is the meeting between Chinese and US leaders. On the eve of National Day, when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded to questions, they were optimistic and admitted arrangements are underway. At the first regular press conference after the holiday, a BBC reporter asked if China would send representatives. Will China participate in the informal APEC leaders meeting? Will the Chinese leader meet with US President Trump during APEC? The response from Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun was noticeably different. Guo Jiakun said that China attaches great importance to cooperation within the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, and is willing to work with all parties to promote positive outcomes at this year's meeting, contributing to economic growth in the Asia-Pacific and the world. As for the question about a summit between the Chinese and US leaders, Guo Jiakun responded by saying, "Regarding the specific issue you mentioned, I currently have no information to provide. From previously saying that China and the US were in talks, to now having no information to offer, China's attitude toward the meeting has become less proactive. This is clearly related to the recent period in which the US has repeatedly taken small actions to suppress China, especially being very dissatisfied with the US asking its allies to suppress China in exchange for tariff reductions." At the same time, the US has continued to strengthen its sanctions list. On October 8th, the US Department of Commerce announced that 15 Chinese companies were added to the export control entity list for assisting Hamas, Houthi militants, and other Iran-backed armed groups in purchasing American drone electronic components. On the first working day after the long holiday, the Department of Commerce's very first action was to issue 2 countermeasures in a row, including measures related to rare earth mining. Export controls have been imposed on technologies such as the manufacturing of rare earth separation pool materials and secondary resource recycling. In other words, in addition to managing the export of rare earth minerals, China's proprietary refining technologies are also being restricted to prevent these techniques from being stolen. Another move is to directly impose reciprocal countermeasures on American military-industrial enterprises. According to an announcement from the Ministry of Commerce, starting from October 9th, the ministry has decided to add the anti-drone technology company Tag Insight and its branches, along with 14 other foreign entities, to the unreliable entity list. Besides Tag Insight and its branches, the other 12 foreign entities also include DJI Technology. These include the American branch of Speedbit Systems, Ibellis Company, Aerospace Environment Company, Cubic Global Defense Company, and the Hafalix International Security Forum, among others. The announcement states that these entities are prohibited from engaging in import and export activities related to China, making new investments within China, and that organizations and individuals within China are also banned from conducting related transactions or cooperation with these entities. In particular, the transmission of data to these entities is strictly prohibited. Providing sensitive information, a spokesperson, when responding to reporters' questions about the unreliable entity list measures, stated that in recent years, foreign entities such as anti-drone technology company Tag Insight and its other branches have, despite China's strong opposition, engaged in military technology cooperation with Taiwan, made malicious statements regarding Taiwan, and assisted foreign governments in suppressing Chinese enterprises. These actions have seriously undermined China's national sovereignty, security, and development interests. In accordance with relevant laws and regulations, these entities will be held legally accountable for their unlawful actions. He emphasized that China only acts in accordance with the law against a very small number of foreign entities that endanger China's national security. Law-abiding foreign entities have absolutely nothing to worry about. China is also committed to providing a stable, fair, and predictable business environment for foreign invested enterprises operating in China in compliance with laws and regulations. To put it simply, China's attitude has always been consistent. If you want to talk, our door is open. If you want to fight, we will accompany you to the end. The US cannot say it wants to hold talks while at the same time waving the big stick of sanctions. If that's the case, China will definitely retaliate and will strike back in a short period of time. Recently, Trump has been making a big show of peace talks to showcase his diplomatic achievements, but when it comes to domestic affairs, the White House is having a real headache. Besides clashing with states governed by the Democratic Party, agricultural products are unable to enter the market. The market? That's what's making the White House most uneasy. As soybeans enter the harvest season, American farmers who have lost Chinese customers are now fighting for survival. According to a Wall Street Journal report on October 7th, under the dual pressures of rising equipment and fertilizer costs and an oversupply of corn and soybeans, the financial situation of American farmers is already on the brink of collapse. To appease the farmers, the U.S. Congress passed a $10 billion agricultural relief plan, which the Trump administration is currently considering. They are seeking between $10 and $14 billion in funding to help offset the impact that this trade dispute has brought to farmers. This Monday, Trump announced at the White House that he would introduce agricultural support measures this week to help growers cope with losses from the decline in exports to China. A White House official told U.S. media that Trump is expected to meet with U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue later this week, and ultimately the source of the agricultural relief funds will be determined. Previously, Trump and his team had claimed that they would consider using tariff revenues to provide most of the funding for the relief plan. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Agriculture responded by saying that Trump is using every available tool to ensure that farmers have the resources they need to maintain agricultural production. In addition, the New York Times reported that farmers are hoping the relief plan will be announced as soon as possible. As for the White House, they have shifted the blame, saying that the ongoing government shutdown has forced the plan to be delayed. However, farmers are not waiting around. Seeing that the government has yet to come up with a concrete solution, panic among American farmers is only intensifying. Ron Kindred, who grows 1,700 acres of corn and soybeans in central Illinois, has already completed half of his soybean harvest this year. According to a contract he has already signed, he plans to sell 40% of his soybean yield, but the remaining 60% still faces uncertainty at the moment. The local soybean prices have already started to fall. Kindred is worried that if an agreement with China cannot be reached soon, the soybean market may collapse completely. On the Chinese side, there seems to be no sense of urgency, while anxiety within the American agricultural sector is only growing stronger. In order to reduce reliance on the Chinese market, Kindred has traveled to Vietnam and the Philippines, trying to persuade local livestock farmers to increase their purchases of American soybeans. He said that in recent years, they have indeed made some progress, but there's no way for them to find a market to replace China overnight. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, the second and third largest buyers of American soybeans are the EU and Mexico. Together, these two economies purchase about $5 billion worth of soybeans annually. This scale still doesn't come close to China's $12.6 billion worth of purchases in 2024. As for countries like Vietnam, Egypt, and Bangladesh, the increase in American soybean purchases from these countries in recent years makes it even harder to fill the gap left by the Chinese market. Across the Mississippi River from Kindred, soybean farmer Hill from Iowa has also made several trips to Cambodia this year to look for opportunities. According to reports, like tens of thousands of other American farmers, Hill started about 30 years ago. He switched from growing hay to planting soybeans. At that time, the promotion of Roundup-ready soybeans combined with the surge in demand from the Chinese market attracted a large number of farmers like him to expand their soybean cultivation. According to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, from 1995 to 2024, the area planted with soybeans in the United States increased by 40%. But now, Hill no longer has the motivation to sell newly harvested soybeans. He warns that if an agreement with China cannot be reached soon, the U.S. soybean market might face a bloodbath. Right. Earlier this year, Washington state farmer Ewald also traveled to Rome to meet with a major poultry producer, Trellis. But Ewald feels that orders from countries like Denmark just can't compare to the Chinese market. In the long run, exploring new markets is indeed helpful. But if American growers can't sell their soybeans quickly, he's worried he won't be able to raise enough funds to keep his farm running. Currently, American agriculture The situation has gotten so bad that some farmers have announced they're giving up. Baker Holtz, a corn and soybean grower in DeKalb County, Illinois, said that due to rising costs, low crop prices, and some health issues, this will be his last year in farming. He plans to lease out his land next year. Baker Holtz said with a sense of resignation, "I always thought I'd be farming until the day I was laid to rest, but now the situation is such that either I quit or take on more debt or else just give up and stop altogether. It's simply not realistic." But even if China and the US continue to push forward with trade agreement negotiations now or in the future, people in the agricultural sector remain pessimistic. They believe that even if the two countries can reach an agreement, it will likely be too late to save the incomes of many American farmers. A representative from the soybean industry told American Political News Network, "By that time, half of our shipping window will already have passed." For our farmers, this is already a critical moment, but we still haven't seen any signs of improvement. Only if we can resolve the issue in time and actually ship soybeans to China can we have hope. According to Political News Network, in the long run, the prospects for the US to resume large-scale soybean exports to China are not optimistic. The Chinese side has doubts about the reliability of the Trump administration's trade commitments, and with China promoting a strategy of self-sufficiency, this could mean that in the foreseeable future, the US farmers may face the risk of losing the Chinese market. To sum up simply, during the process of arranging a summit between the Chinese and US leaders, the tug-of-war between both sides will continue. China's choice to abandon American soybean producers and turn to Latin American suppliers sends a clear signal. China still has many other friends in the world, especially among the global South countries. This also greatly strengthens China's bargaining position in negotiations with the US.